Hey everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is a video overview of this knife, the Spyderco Techno. This is a knife that was originally released, I think, in late 2012 or early 2013, and I just now was able to get my hands on it. I got it as a Christmas present, and so I wanted to give an overview of the knife. The knife is a Spyderco knife. It's made in Taichung, Taiwan. It has CTS XHP, which is an American-made steel by Carpenter. And it was designed by a Polish knife designer named Marcin Schlich. And the knife was a production version of Marcin's knife called the Mouse. The knife is a titanium frame lock. It has titanium show side scale and a titanium lock side scale with a deep carry wire pocket clip. As I said, the blade was CTS XHP, and it's in this modified drop point style. And finally, it has a blue G10 geared backspacer. Overall, the knife is a relatively small knife. It fits pretty comfortably in my hand, as you can see. And it is a knife that I really like. It is very thick, as you can see there. The knife stock is quite thick. Let's compare it to a knife that a lot of people have, which is the Benchmade Mini Grip. And you can see that the blade stock on the Techno is probably, at least a third thicker, maybe 50% thicker than the blade stock on the Mini Grip. So this is a really stout little knife. It has a full flat grind, and the grind comes down to a pretty acute edge given how thick the knife is. So it must be a pretty radical grind. And as you can see right there, it is actually a pretty radical grind. It's removing quite a bit of stock. Additionally, unlike a lot of Spydercos, this knife has a true ricasso, which means that you can sharpen it all the way to the end. If you look at a knife like the Dragonfly or the Cali 3, or even the more mainline knives like the Delica or the Endura, they either have one of two things. They have a finger choil, and the finger choil butts up right against the edge of the blade, or they just have the ricasso come right into the full thickness of the blade. But here, on this knife, there's a full ricasso, so you can actually sharpen it. And it's something I really like. It makes it much easier to get nice long passes on a sharpening stone, or in my case, the Sharpmaker. Overall, the fit and finish on this knife is really superb. I was shocked to get the knife because while I had handled and owned and reviewed quite a few knives from Taichung, Taiwan, this knife is really sort of the because it's a titanium frame lock. It's so easy to compare with other knives, and so I was sort of prepared for it not to measure up to, say, like the Sebenza. And maybe the Strider PT. But having used this knife, having carried this knife for, I don't know, since Christmas, so it's the 10th of January today, so just about 2 weeks, I've been really, really pleasantly surprised. The centering is quite good. The lockup is quite good. As you can see, there's no blade play, no movement in either up and down or side to side. And it's a very smooth knife. Furthermore, this knife has a really heavy detent, unlike a lot of Spydercos that have either no detent or a very weak detent. This knife has a heavy detent, and because it's a frame lock, liner locks and frame locks allow the blade to swing with virtually no impediment, unlike a lockback, which puts pressure on the rear of the tang of the knife the entire way through the opening arc. A liner lock or a frame lock, they just have the detent coming in contact with the blade until it pops behind. So you can actually flick this knife open pretty easily. Just have your thumb there, have your thumb load up some pressure, and then it'll pop right open. You can't really do that with something like the Delica or the Endura. And you can't even do it with a more premium lockback like the Cali 3. So it's something I really like about the knife. It allows you to get it open nice and easy, and at the same time, if you really want to, you can do the slow roll and roll it through like that, so as not to scare anybody. Overall, the knife is just about the right size. I wish it was a little skinnier. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be this fat, but it's definitely the right size. The blade length is just about 2.5 inches, maybe a little bit over. I think it's like 2.55 inches. The weight is 3.8 ounces, which is getting to the chunky point. I don't like anything chunkier. You know, like if I had my druthers, I'd have everything under 3 ounces or less. But I do have to say that the stoutness of the knife makes it, you know, feel good in your hand, and without being like overly heavy. Again, I'd like it a little thinner, but what are you going to do? The one thing that I do think is a big standout from this knife is just how well done it is. I mean, the online community has known for a while that the Taichung Taiwan knives are among the best Spydercos out there. And in fact, I think it's probably safe to say that other than the ZT knives, the American-made ZT knives, I think that the Taichung Taiwan knives are about the best production knives you can find. I would stack them up pretty favorably against like the Sebenza. I would stack them up against like a Strider. You know, I have a Strider. I've had a Sebenza, and you know, one of the things that happened in those knives was that I needed some Loctite to correct the fact that the pivot would come undone. Even on my XM18, the pivot will come undone every once in a while. And in this knife, I've never had that problem. I also own a Zulu, which is another knife produced by the Taichung Taiwan original engineering and manufacturer, the OEM in Taiwan. And it too is exemplary in its fit and finish. There's never been any issues. So if you're looking for really good value in a top-end production knife, I would, like I said, I would either look at the Taichung Taiwan Spydercos or I would look at the American-made ZTs, because that's where it's at right now. They're really making great stuff, and this is one of their better knives. It's a really great size. It's very pocketable. One thing that a lot of people complained about this knife that I don't find to be that objectionable is there are really two wire clips that Spyderco makes. There's the really high-tension ones that are on the Dragonfly, and then there is the looser clips that are like the ones that are on this knife and the Cali 3. And I think it has to do with the length of the length of the wire clip. I think that if I'm not mistaken, the Dragonfly one is a little bit shorter. And while it does move a little bit, it's not enough to make it a problem for me. And you can see it is going to make a little rub mark on the titanium. But again, I use my knives, and I'm not going to worry about that. So, not a big deal. Look forward to writing the review of this knife. It's a fun knife to use and fun knife to carry.